And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here with Katie Greifeld, taking you through to that closing bell with the global simulcast. There's Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec in the radio booth. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, including our partnership with YouTube. Kicking off the month of December, Carol, on a bit of a down note.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just, I feel like malaise in the equity markets. What's really captured my attention, though, is what's going on in U.S. Treasuries. You've got that 10-year easily above 4%, but we've just seen yields tick higher, even though the expectations at next week's Fed meeting is that we're going to get another Fed increase. So a lot of it has to do with what happened in Japan overnight.
I thought you were going to say what really got your attention was what's happening in the crypto markets. I mean, Bitcoin's down another 6.3% today. Ether's down 8.7%. XRP down 7.5%. Bitcoin 85,300, off more than 30% from that all-time high.
Yeah, it is pretty stunning to watch what's going on in the crypto space, and it feeds into what's going on in the equity market. We have a lot of crypto equities out there. Strategy comes to mind, but also Robinhood, for example, and exchanges such as Coinbase. There's a lot of crypto exposure just in the public equity markets.
Absolutely. And then we take a look at just cross-asset wise, too, some other things for investors to keep an eye on. You see the weakness in the dollar. But also, I thought it was interesting, too. You continue to see a lot of activity in the commodity space, that big run-up that we're seeing in silver, which seems to be, at least for today, at the expense of gold. And a lot of concerns right now about oil prices. They now start to creep up just a little bit here on this December 1st. We get the closing bells in New York on the first trading day of the final month of the year. The S&P lower by about 0.5% on the day. The NASDAQ indices each down by roughly about 0.4%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down about 0.9% as we wait for these numbers to settle. But the Russell 2000, that's going to be your laggard on the day, down 1.3%.
All right, and let's go to the S&P 500 back there to the big caps. And we've got most names in the index lower today, Katie. 367 names in the S&P 500 losing ground today. 135 to the upside, 1 unchanged.
Yeah, similar story when you take a look at the circle. A lot of it is red today. You did see tech manage to finish slightly in the green. Energy was your big outperformer on the day. That sector higher by about 0.9%. But in terms of what was really dragging us down on the downside, utilities off by about 2.4%. Industrial is also a bit of a wipeout, off by about 1.5%. Healthcare, real estate, just some of the many losers today, Carol.
All right, let's get to some of the individual gainers, if I may, in today's session. And I'm going to go to Old Dominion Freight Line, because this one up as much as just shy of 6% at its highs today, but finishing with a gain of about 3.2%. We did see it among the top gainers in the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100 today. BMO Capital Markets raising the recommendation on the trucking company to outperform from market perform, saying the company is set to, quote, deliver upside when the freight cycle turns. They did, though, lower their price target to 170 from 172, so just a slight adjustment there, still implying about a 26% increase from Friday's close before this call. Stock is still down roughly 19% year to date. Got to talk about Synopsys, right? Certainly a name that is your top gainer in both the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100, finishing the day just shy of a 5% gain. NVIDIA investing $2 billion in Synopsys as part of a broader engineering and design tie-up, according to the company, aiming to infuse its AI computing technology into more industries. So this new partnership involving integrating NVIDIA's tools into Synopsys's chip design applications, and the companies will deploy AI agents and work on joint marketing. So that circular financing, or just circular deals, it seems, maybe not necessarily this one, because I don't think that Synopsys has to buy NVIDIA chips, but nonetheless, it gets, not yet, right? It gets a little bit cozier. All right, DoorDash, got to mention real quick, 3.6%. It was a top gainer in the NASDAQ 100. This after Alfred Lin, a managing partner of Sequoia Capital Operations, the second largest investor in the delivery company, boosted his stake in the firm, according to a filing on Friday. And Leggett Platt, I have to just mention, Leggett and Platt. I know.
That's what you chose?
Up 16% in today's session. I thought that you would like that. I was assuming you might annoy me later.
What do they do?
What do they do? They're a betting company.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they make. Well, actually, they're a supplier to a betting company. So Somni Group International proposed to buy one of its biggest suppliers, that being Leggett and Platt, and it's an all-stock transaction. So yeah, I'm done.
Bedding. Bedding, not betting.
Bedding.
Bedding, not like betting.
Not like betting,
Okay.
like gambling.
Okay, just making sure.
You kind of took the wind out of my sails. I really thought you were going to like that one, Romaine.
She does it for you, Romaine.
Somni Group, Tempur Sealy,
Okay.
Mattress Firm, Dreams, betting businesses.
Romaine's not saying anything, so I'm going to go. The worst performer in the S&P 500 today.
Just a little wounded.
Moderna down 7%. Shares of vaccine makers fell after Vinay Prasad, a top FDA official, said in a memo that the agency would place new restrictions on which vaccines hit the market. The decision has the potential to curtail which vaccines are available, and medical groups and public health experts have slammed the moves to limit vaccine access, saying they could put millions of lives at risk. Once again, Moderna down 7% today. MicroStrategy, or Strategy rather, as it's now called, MSTR is the ticker, fell only 3.3% today. And I say only because it was down as much as 12%. We saw a little buying late in the session, watching shares of the company on a day when we saw heavy selling of Bitcoin. Strategy did come out and create a $1.4 billion reserve to fund future dividend and interest payments, which will cover at least 21 months of dividend payments. Remember, this is originally a software company, and the software business doesn't generate enough free cash flow to cover the dividend or interest payments, and Bitcoin doesn't pay a dividend. So the question is, where would that money come from? The company's shares slumped due to concern that it may be forced to sell some of its Bitcoin holdings if token prices continue to fall. And finally, looking at ADRs of Airbus today, the plane maker based in Europe, down 3.2%. The company did reveal a quality issue on some fuselage panels of its A320 jetliner just days after flagging a software glitch on about 6,000 of the jets. This is the workhorse. This is the moneymaker. It's the competitor to the 737. George Ferguson over at Bloomberg Intelligence told us that the company could have a problem meeting earnings goals as a result of these challenges, but doesn't think that anyone's going to actually get out of the line, which extends just around a decade to actually get one of these A320s. So it doesn't see long-term impact on the company as a result of this.
All right, meanwhile, we do have some breaking news in the form of earnings from MongoDB. Here's the headline. Third quarter adjusted EPS beats estimates, coming in at $1.32 a share. For context, the estimate was for 80 cents, so quite a beat there. You can see that reflected in the shares. The third quarter loss per share was 2 cents. The estimate had been for a loss per share of 13 cents, or rather that was the year-over-year number here. When it comes to third quarter revenue, that came in at $628.3 million. The estimate had been for $594.8 million. So a big beat there on several measures. And you, again, can see that in the shares really extending now up about 12% after hours.
Yeah, kind of interesting to see how this company, the stock at least, I should say, has kind of gotten its mojo back the last 2 or 3 earnings periods here. You're seeing a big pop there in the shares in the after hours trade. Meanwhile, let's just check in on treasuries because we did see the entire yield curve shift higher on this Monday afternoon. It was largely a function, first of all, of that sell-off that we saw in Japanese debt because of concerns about inflation, that then sort of fed into the U.S. because of concerns about Trump's rumored pick to lead the Fed. That raised concerns about inflation, and you saw those yields move higher. Also, don't forget, you got a huge deluge of corporate borrowing that's crowding out some of the money that would normally potentially have gone into treasuries.
All right, good stuff in terms of what we're seeing for yields and treasuries. Hey, let's go to some stories that have jumped up on our radar. This one caught our attention, and this has to do with kind of even the Magic Kingdom being concerned about the power grab that's going on with all the data center build out. Disney seeking energy trader as big firms try to curb power costs. So they're basically looking for an energy trader as major corporations are growing more shrewd about controlling their energy costs. And we kind of have seen this, I feel like, with fuel and different things in the past, but it's
like an
even
airline
steeper.
does when it hedges fuel.
Exactly.
Some airlines do that. In case you're interested, the successful candidate will buy power on an hourly and daily basis, secure favorable pricing, and help keep one of the world's largest tourism destinations reliably powered. So for all the Disney adults out there who may be interested in the power industry as well, this job's for you.
Wow. You do need 5+ years of wholesale electric market experience, but this has to be the dream job for someone.
Do you have to like dress up in a costume for this?
Wear the ears, perhaps? I'm not sure.
Mickey Mouse, maybe?
What else you got?
That's what we got.
Oh, that's
what else
we
you got?
Well, I've been keeping. Well, I don't know, Katie. What are you doing?
over
I'm
to
trying
you
to
guys.
protect my voice here. Anyway, the one big story that we've been following here, just being joking around here, is this big casino approval that we have in New York City. Of course, New York City proper doesn't really have traditional casinos. 3 got approved today, including one that will be developed by Steve Cohen, of course, a former hedge fund manager, now the owner of the Mets, who's really kind of building out a whole sports and now gambling empire out there in Queens, New York.
Yeah, this is an
That's where the
interesting
nanny's
one.
from.
So the other 2
Kevin
projects
James.
selected are
Queens get the money.
Romaine, what year is it?
I thought you were
I don't know.
saving your voice.
Nice.
apparently it's also expanding next to Aqueduct Racetrack. I do think this is really interesting, and also what doesn't Steve Cohen do? You think about this empire that he's built, adding casinos to it as well. It's pretty fascinating.
I'm just glad they didn't build this thing in like Midtown Manhattan
I
there
agree.
originally. Like
Not
Times
in your
Square.
backyard.
Like have you been to Times Square? Like
Try not
dropping
to.
a gigantic casino there, I can guarantee you it would have attracted the wrong kind of people.